You're 12 years old, and your dad just became the most powerful person on earth. Overnight, your awkward preteen years become front-page news. Every outfit you wear, every friend you make, every mistake you stumble through is dissected by millions of strangers. Your childhood bedroom is now in a house that tourists photograph from behind iron gates. This isn't the plot of some dystopian novel. This was Chelsea Clinton's reality when her father Bill Clinton won the presidency in 1992. But here's what makes her story truly extraordinary. Instead of crumbling under the unprecedented pressure of growing up as America's only child in the White House, she transformed that spotlight into a platform for change that would define her entire life. Chelsea Victoria Clinton entered the world on February 27, 1980, in Little Rock, Arkansas, born to two of the most ambitious political minds of their generation. Her parents, Bill and Hillary Clinton, were already making waves in Arkansas politics, with Bill serving as the state's attorney general and later governor, while Hillary was carving out her own path as a formidable lawyer and advocate. From her earliest memories, Chelsea was surrounded by the intoxicating energy of political discourse, campaign strategies, and the relentless pursuit of public service. Her parents didn't just talk politics at the dinner table, they lived and breathed it, and their young daughter absorbed every word like a sponge. The Clinton household was unlike any typical American family. While other kids worried about homework and playground drama, Chelsea grew up watching her parents navigate complex policy debates, host foreign dignitaries, and make decisions that affected thousands of lives. Her mother Hillary would later describe how they tried to maintain normalcy, insisting on family dinners and homework time, but the reality was that normal had a different definition in the governor's mansion. Chelsea learned early that her family's life was public property, that their decisions were scrutinized, and that service to others came before personal comfort. But nothing could have prepared the Clinton family for what came next. When Bill Clinton announced his presidential campaign in 1991, 11-year-old Chelsea watched her relatively private life in Arkansas begin to dissolve. The campaign trail was a whirlwind of rallies, debates, and media attention that grew more intense by the day. Chelsea observed her parents transform from local politicians to national figures, watching her father's charisma captivate crowds while her mother faced unprecedented scrutiny as a potential first lady who refused to fit traditional molds. The young girl who had grown up in the Arkansas governor's mansion was about to become the most watched teenager in America. The 1992 election victory changed everything. As the Clintons prepared to move into the White House, Chelsea faced a reality that no American child had experienced in over a decade. She would be the only minor child living in the presidential residence since Amy Carter in the late 1970s. The weight of this unique position was staggering. Every aspect of her teenage years would unfold under the most intense spotlight imaginable, with the entire nation watching her navigate puberty, high school, and the normal struggles of adolescence while living in the most famous house in America. From the moment the Clintons moved into the White House in January 1993, Chelsea's parents made one thing crystal clear to the media: their daughter was off limits. In an unprecedented move, President and Mrs. Clinton issued a direct plea to journalists and photographers to respect their daughter's privacy, asking that she be allowed to grow up as normally as possible despite her extraordinary circumstances. This wasn't just a polite request, it was a line in the sand drawn by two parents who understood the destructive power of media attention on a developing child. The strategy worked, at least partially. Most mainstream media outlets respected the Clinton family's wishes, but that didn't stop the relentless curiosity about the mysterious teenager living in the White House. Chelsea became a figure of fascination precisely because she was kept out of the spotlight. Every rare public appearance was analyzed, every photograph scrutinized for clues about her personality, her interests, her relationship with her famous parents. She attended Sidwell Friends School in Washington, D.C., a prestigious private institution known for educating the children of political elites, where she tried to maintain some semblance of a normal teenage experience despite the Secret Service detail that followed her everywhere. Living in the White House during her teenage years shaped Chelsea in ways that would resonate throughout her entire life. she witnessed firsthand the immense responsibility that comes with public service, watching her parents make decisions that affected millions of people while simultaneously dealing with personal attacks and political warfare that would have broken lesser individuals. She saw her mother weather the healthcare reform battles, watched her father navigate economic challenges and foreign policy crises, and observed how public service demanded everything from those who chose to pursue it. But Chelsea's White House years weren't just about observing, they were about learning. She had access to some of the most brilliant minds in politics, policy, and international relations. Dinner conversations might include discussions about peace negotiations in the Middle East, economic policy impacts on working families, or the complex relationships between nations. She traveled with her parents on official state visits, experiencing different cultures and witnessing diplomacy in action. These experiences weren't just educational, they were transformative, instilling in her a deep understanding of global interconnectedness and the power of informed activism. The Clinton presidency wasn't without its controversies, and Chelsea found herself in the unique position of watching her family weather some of the most intense political storms in American history. The Whitewater investigation, various political scandals, and eventually the Monica Lewinsky affair and subsequent impeachment proceedings played out not just in the headlines, but in her living room. As a teenager, she had to navigate not only her own developmental challenges but also the reality that her father's presidency was under constant attack, and by extension, her family's reputation and legacy hung in the balance. The Monica Lewinsky scandal, in particular, thrust Chelsea into an impossible situation. At 18 years old, she had to process her father's infidelity and the subsequent national conversation about his character while simultaneously supporting her mother through one of the most publicly humiliating experiences any spouse could endure. The strength and grace she displayed during this period revealed a maturity beyond her years, forged by years of living under public scrutiny and watching her parents navigate crisis after crisis with dignity and determination. As Chelsea prepared to leave for college at Stanford University in 1997, she faced a transition that was both liberating and terrifying. For the first time in her life, she would be living away from the protective bubble of the White House, but the media attention wouldn't simply disappear because she changed zip codes. Stanford represented freedom, but also vulnerability. She would no longer have the full protection of the Secret Service and the controlled environment of the presidential residence. College at Stanford offered Chelsea her first real taste of independence, but it came with unique challenges. She studied history and literature, threw herself into academic work with the same intensity her parents brought to politics, and tried to build genuine friendships with classmates who knew her as Chelsea the student, not Chelsea the first daughter. The media largely respected her privacy during her undergraduate years, allowing her to experience college life with relative normalcy, though the underlying awareness of her unique background never fully disappeared. During her Stanford years, Chelsea began to develop her own voice and perspective on the issues that mattered to her. She wasn't content to simply coast on her family's reputation. She wanted to understand the world deeply, to form her own opinions, and to figure out how she could contribute meaningfully to society. Her academic work focused on international relations and history, laying the groundwork for the global perspective that would later define her professional work. After graduating from Stanford in 2001, Chelsea faced the question that had been looming for years: what do you do when you're the daughter of a former president and one of the most recognizable political families in America? The easy path would have been to immediately enter politics, trading on her name recognition and family connections. Instead, she chose a different route, one that would allow her to build her own credentials and expertise before deciding how to use her platform. Chelsea's decision to pursue graduate studies at Oxford University was both practical and symbolic. Practically, it gave her world-class education in international relations and the opportunity to study at one of the world's premier universities. Symbolically, it represented her commitment to earning her own achievements rather than relying solely on her family's legacy. At Oxford, she could be just another American graduate student, albeit one with an unusually famous last name. Her time at Oxford was formative in ways that extended far beyond academics. She was studying international relations during some of the most turbulent years in recent global history, the aftermath of 9/11, the invasion of Afghanistan, the lead-up to the Iraq War. These weren't just theoretical policy discussions for Chelsea. She understood better than most students how these decisions were made, the weight they carried, and the human cost of international conflict. Her unique perspective, informed by years of watching foreign policy unfold from inside the White House, gave her insights that her classmates couldn't match. While pursuing her master's degree at Oxford, Chelsea also began to explore her own political voice. She worked as a correspondent for NBC News, covering stories that allowed her to combine her academic training with her natural curiosity about global affairs. This work represented her first serious foray into professional media, and it revealed her ability to ask probing questions and present complex issues in accessible ways. Her reporting wasn't just competent, it demonstrated a genuine talent for journalism and storytelling. The transition from student to professional was complicated by the unique circumstances of her background. Every career choice Chelsea made was analyzed through the lens of her political heritage. When she worked as a consultant at McKinsey & Company, critics questioned whether she was truly qualified or simply benefiting from her famous name. When she pursued journalism, some wondered whether she could maintain objectivity given her family's political prominence. These challenges forced Chelsea to work twice as hard to prove her competence and establish her own professional credibility. But Chelsea's most significant transformation began when she decided to focus her energy on philanthropy and social activism. Working with the Clinton Foundation, she found a way to channel her passion for global issues and her unique access into meaningful change. The foundation's work on global health, economic development, and social justice aligned perfectly with her academic background and personal values. More importantly, it allowed her to step out of her parents' shadow while still building on the family's commitment to public service. Her work with the Clinton Foundation revealed Chelsea's true talents and passions. She wasn't content to be a figurehead or celebrity spokesperson. She dove deep into program management, policy analysis, and strategic planning. Her academic training in international relations proved invaluable as she helped guide the foundation's work in dozens of countries, addressing everything from HIV/AIDS prevention to economic development initiatives. She demonstrated the same intellectual rigor her parents were known for, but applied it to humanitarian work rather than electoral politics. The foundation work also allowed Chelsea to develop her own public voice and leadership style. Unlike her parents, who thrived in the rough-and-tumble world of electoral politics, Chelsea was drawn to the more collaborative, consensus-building approach required for effective philanthropy. She learned to work with diverse stakeholders, from government officials to NGO leaders to community activists, building the kind of broad coalitions necessary to create lasting change. As Chelsea's professional reputation grew, so did speculation about her political ambitions. Media outlets regularly published articles wondering when she would run for office, analyzing her every public statement for hints about future campaigns. The assumption seemed to be that political ambition was hereditary, that she would inevitably follow her parents into electoral politics. But Chelsea consistently pushed back against these expectations, insisting that public service could take many forms and that she was committed to the foundation work that had become her passion. This decision to stay out of electoral politics, at least for now, represented a crucial choice about how to use her platform and influence. Chelsea understood that her famous name gave her access and credibility that most activists could never achieve, but she also recognized that electoral politics would require her to engage in the kind of partisan warfare that had defined her parents' careers. By focusing on philanthropy and advocacy, she could build bridges across political divides and work on issues that transcended party lines. The birth of her children, Charlotte in 2014, Aiden in 2016, and Jasper in 2019, added another dimension to Chelsea's public role. Suddenly, she wasn't just the daughter of famous politicians, she was a mother trying to balance her own career in activism with the demands of raising young children. Her approach to motherhood reflected the lessons she had learned from her own upbringing, she was determined to give her children as much normalcy as possible while also teaching them about their privilege and responsibility to contribute to society. Motherhood also influenced Chelsea's advocacy work, particularly her focus on issues affecting women and children. She became increasingly vocal about paid family leave, childcare support, and other policies that affect working parents. Her personal experience navigating career and family gave her advocacy work an authenticity that resonated with other parents facing similar challenges. She wasn't just speaking about policy abstractions, she was advocating for changes that would affect her own family and millions of others. The 2016 presidential election represented another turning point in Chelsea's public life. As her mother mounted her historic campaign to become the first woman president, Chelsea found herself thrust back into the political spotlight in a way she hadn't experienced since her teenage years. This time, however, she was an adult with her own career and family, capable of making her own choices about how much to participate in the campaign. Chelsea's role in her mother's campaign was significant but carefully calibrated. She appeared at rallies and fundraisers, gave interviews defending her mother's record and qualifications, and used her social media platforms to support the campaign. But she also maintained her focus on her own work and family, refusing to let the campaign completely consume her life the way political campaigns tend to do. Her balanced approach reflected the lessons she had learned about maintaining personal boundaries while supporting family members in public service. The devastating loss of the 2016 election affected Chelsea deeply, both as a daughter watching her mother's lifelong ambition fall short and as a citizen concerned about the direction of the country. In the aftermath of the election, she had to process not only personal disappointment but also genuine fear about policies that could undermine the social progress she had spent her career supporting. The election results represented a rejection not just of her mother's candidacy, but of many of the values and priorities that had shaped Chelsea's worldview. In response to the 2016 election, Chelsea became more politically outspoken than she had ever been before. She used her Twitter platform to fact-check misleading statements, advocate for policies she supported, and call out what she saw as dangerous rhetoric and actions by the new administration. This increased political engagement represented a shift for someone who had previously tried to stay above partisan battles, but Chelsea seemed to conclude that the stakes were too high for polite neutrality. Her increased political activity sparked renewed speculation about her own electoral ambitions, but Chelsea continued to insist that her focus remained on advocacy and philanthropy rather than running for office. She seemed to have found a sweet spot where she could use her platform to influence political debates and policy discussions without subjecting herself and her family to the brutal realities of modern electoral campaigns. Throughout this period, Chelsea's work continued to evolve and expand. She authored several books, including children's books that reflected her commitment to empowering young people and encouraging civic engagement. Her writing revealed another dimension of her talents, the ability to communicate complex ideas in accessible, engaging ways that could reach audiences far beyond policy wanks and political insiders. Her books weren't just vanity projects, they represented genuine attempts to contribute to important conversations about gender equality, civic engagement, and social justice. She persisted, her series of children's books highlighting women who overcame obstacles to achieve their goals, became bestsellers and introduced young readers to inspiring female role models from throughout history. These books allowed Chelsea to combine her passion for women's rights with her desire to educate and inspire the next generation. Chelsea's evolution as a public intellectual and advocate has been remarkable to watch. She has managed to carve out a unique space in American public life, prominent enough to command attention for the causes she cares about, but not so politically polarizing that she can't work across traditional divides. Her approach to activism is thoughtful, well-researched, and focused on building sustainable solutions rather than just generating headlines. Her work on global health issues, particularly maternal and child mortality, has taken her to dozens of countries and put her in direct contact with the communities most affected by the problems she's trying to solve. These experiences have grounded her advocacy in real-world understanding rather than theoretical knowledge, giving her the credibility to speak authoritatively about complex global challenges. As Chelsea has matured into her 40s, her public profile has stabilized into something quite different from what many people expected when she first emerged from the White House as an 18-year-old college student. Rather than following her parents into electoral politics, she has created her own path that combines elements of journalism, academia, activism, and philanthropy into a unique form of public service. Her influence extends far beyond traditional political power. Through her writing, speaking, and advocacy work, she shapes conversations about some of the most important issues facing our world, from gender equality to global health to civic engagement. Her voice carries weight not just because of her famous name, but because she has spent decades building expertise and credibility in the areas she cares about most. The question of whether Chelsea will ever run for political office remains open, and she has consistently refused to rule it out entirely. But her current path suggests that she has found ways to create change and influence policy without subjecting herself to the particular demands and constraints of electoral politics. She has built a platform that allows her to advocate for her values while maintaining the flexibility to evolve and adapt as circumstances change. Looking at Chelsea Clinton's journey from awkward preteen in the Arkansas governor's mansion to accomplished author, advocate, and mother, several themes emerge that define her unique contribution to American public life. First is her commitment to using privilege responsibly. She has never taken for granted the access and opportunities that come with her family name, but has worked consistently to earn her own achievements and build her own expertise. Second is her focus on building bridges rather than walls. In an era of increasing political polarization, Chelsea has maintained relationships and found common ground with people across the political spectrum. Her approach to advocacy emphasizes collaboration and problem-solving rather than partisan point scoring, reflecting a maturity and strategic thinking that comes from watching politics up close for her entire life. Third is her commitment to the next generation. Whether through her children's books, her advocacy for policies affecting families, or her work with young activists and entrepreneurs, Chelsea consistently focuses on creating a better world for future generations. This long-term perspective reflects both her academic training and her personal experience of growing up in a family committed to public service. Perhaps most importantly, Chelsea has demonstrated that there are many ways to serve the public good beyond running for office. Her career path offers a different model of civic engagement, one that emphasizes expertise, collaboration, and sustained commitment to important causes rather than the electoral success that traditionally defines political achievement. As we look at Chelsea Clinton's life and career, we see someone who has successfully navigated one of the most challenging circumstances imaginable, growing up in the ultimate spotlight while finding her own voice and purpose. She has transformed the burden of extraordinary public attention into a platform for meaningful change, proving that it's possible to honor your family's legacy while charting your own course. Her story is still being written, and at 44 years old, she likely has decades of public service ahead of her. Whether that service will eventually include elected office remains to be seen, but her track record suggests that whatever path she chooses, it will be guided by the same principles that have defined her journey so far: integrity, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. The little girl who moved into the White House 31 years ago has grown into a woman who embodies the best possibilities of public service in the 21st century. Chelsea Clinton's legacy isn't about living up to her parents' achievements, it's about showing how the next generation can build on that foundation while addressing the unique challenges of our time. In a world that often seems divided beyond repair, her example offers hope that thoughtful, principled leadership can still make a difference. Her journey from the most protected teenager in America to one of the most influential advocates of her generation proves that growing up in the spotlight doesn't have to be a limitation. It can be transformed into an opportunity to illuminate the path forward for others. Chelsea Clinton didn't just survive growing up as America's first daughter, she used that experience to become exactly the kind of leader our complex, interconnected world needs most.